Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Swami Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keśavāṣṭakam Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gokṣaras Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vṛndā Ki Jai. Naam Achay Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vatsari Gaur Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛndā-devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Shri Rāmānujācārya Ki Jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi Ki Jai. Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Śrīla Bhakti Śrīla Bhakti Hṛdaya Ban Goswami Mahārāja Ki Jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi Ki Jai. Shri Keśavāṣṭakam Ki Jai. Vrat Palankari Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛndā Ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vṛndā Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. All right. Share. This is all good. Oh, let me. Okay. Gangeya champeya tarir vinindi Rochi pravaha snapitatma vrinde Bandhu kabandhu Dyuti devavaso vrinde Namaste charanarvindam Pimpadarode taramandahasya Nasagra mukta dyuti dipitase Vichittaratna paranashiyade Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Samasta vaikunta shiro manushi Krishnasya vrindavana danyatani Tatatikare vishabhanu putra vrinde namaste charanarvindam Tadagyaya palava pushpa bringa Mrigadi birma tava keli kunja Madhvadi birpanti vipushamana Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Tadiya dutena nikunjayunot Adyutkayot keli vilasa siddhi Vatso bhagam kena niruchatam tad Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Rasa vilasho vasatishta vrindavane Tarishangri saroja seva Labhya cha pumsam kripaya tavaiva Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Tankita se satvata tantra virvir Lila vidana kila Krishna shaktis Tavaiva murtis tulasi nriloke Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Bhaktya vihina aparadha lakshai Śrīmad
tarangamate kripa mayitam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste karanarabendam Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam yashvinuyat patedva Vṛndavanadishapadakya bringa Saprapya Vṛndavana nityavasam tat prema sevam labate kritartha vrinde namaste charanaravindam vrinde namaste charanaravindam Jai Vṛndā-devi Jai Vṛndā-devi Vṛndā-devi Jaya Vṛndā-devi Jaya Tulsi Mahārāni Jaya Vṛndā-devi Tulsi Mahārāni Jaya Vṛndā-devi. I'm not reading the translations today because the articles that we're going to read are very long and I don't want to end too late. So Navapriya-kamanjari rachita-karna-purashiyam Vinidrataramalati kalita-shekareno-jvalam Tarojvasita-yutika pratita-valguvai-kakshakam Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina-deśata Keśavāṣṭakam Nishangi manikastani Pranata shringi pingekshane Mridanga mukhi dhumale Shabaliham sivamsi priye Iti swasura vikulam Taralamavayantam muram Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina-deśata Keśavāṣṭakam Kana pranaya medhuran Madhura narma goshti kala Vilasa nilayan milay Vivida vesha vidotina Satina kila saraya Patishuhasayantam gira Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina-deśata Keśavāṣṭakam Shamambukanikavali Taravilida gandantara Samudagiritattubi Likita charupantram puram Udancharali mandale Duti vidam vivakralakam Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina-deśata Keśavāṣṭakam Vadanavatarnaka Bali vilokanodkantaya Natat kuraputanchalar Alugubir bhuvam bindatim Kalena tavala khatam Lagu nirvartayantam pura Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina-deśata Keśavāṣṭakam Padankatati virvaram Virachayantamadvashriyam Chalat taralanaichiki Nichayadhulitum prasajam Marullahari chanchale Kritadukula churanchalam Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina-deśata Keśavāṣṭakam Vilasa murali kala Tvani virullasan manasa Shanara kila palavi Pulakayantamantagrihe Muhur vidadatam hride Pramuditancha goshteshvare Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina-deśata Keśavāṣṭakam Upe Nityapati Sundari Tati Virabhiragarchitam Smitangurakaram Vitar Natarapanga Bhankishatai Stanastavaka Sancharan Nayana Chanchari Kanchalam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśava Idam Nikila Balavi Kula Mahotsavolasana Kramena Kilaya Puman Patati Śrīṭupada-ṭakam Tamojvaladiyam Sada Nijapadaravinda-dvaye Ratim Dadada Chanchalam Sukayatad Vishakasaka Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keśava 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 Jaya Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev Keśavadev Jaya Keśavadev. Dandavat pranams, Raseshwari Mataji and Shamali. Hey Shamali, Haribol. Okay. Oh, I thought you were a different Shamali from England. Anyways, Haribol Shamali. Dandavat pranam. Okay, so I'm just... Oh wait, what am I doing? I'm so spaced out. Okay, so now we're going to read... today is the appearance day of Rāmānujācārya and also the appearance day of Śrīla Bhakti Hṛdaya Gosvāmī Mahārāja. So first I'm just going to read some selected instructions by Sri Rāmānujācārya, and then afterwards I'll read from the book My Beloved Masters by Śrīla Bhakti Vijñāna Bhāratī Gosvāmī Mahārāja. I'll read the glories of Śrīla Bhakti Hṛdaya Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Alright. So this was published in Rays of the Harmonist, issue number 22, Kartik 2000. And it's translated actually from the book by my Gurudev, 4 Vaishnavacharyas and Gaudiya Darshan. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit just because this Bhakti Hṛdaya Gosvāmī Mahārāja article is super long. So I'm just going to skip, right? But these are, I guess, most of these are quotes from the Prapanamrita by Sri Rāmānujācārya. One must accept oneself to be the servant, the das, and perpetually serve both Gurudev and the Vaishnavas, giving them equal respect. One must place one's trust in the words of the previous acharyas. And I think, was it last year, was it last year or the year before that? Might have been the year before that. It was Rāmānujācārya's 1000th appearance day. So I guess this is 1001st or 1002nd. One must not spend all one's time, day and night, engaged as a servant of one's senses. Apart from Paramarthik Shastra, scripture concerned solely with the absolute reality, all other scriptures are quite ordinary. Do not be attached to them. I needed to hear this one. I'm just reading a non-devotional book right now. Flowers, sandalwood paste, betel, and other fragrant ingredients must never be used simply to satisfy our taste for enjoyment. In other words, devotees must accept them as the remnants of Bhagavan for activities that foster progress in bhakti, but never for their own enjoyment. Oh man, I need to hear that one also. Actually, honor Prasad. Oh, and here's Rāmānujācārya Murti. Okay. Let whatever affection priti you have Let whatever affection priti you have developed for the unending Nam Kirtan of Sri Bhagavan be truly the same for Nam Sankirtan of Sri Bhagavan's devotees. Wow, that's a very important one. The shelter of the feet of the Mahabhagavats is the sole cause of attaining Bhagavan. Knowing this, one must obey their orders with steadfast determination. As attachment to the objects of sensual pleasure ruins even the wisest of men, so too, by forsaking one's transcendental nature of loving service, dasattva, to Vishnu and Vaishnavas, one shall verily destroy oneself. An intelligent person will unfailingly abandon upaya buddhi, the idea that by serving Vaishnavas some extrinsic reward can be attained, and shall perpetually adopt upaya buddhi instead. The realization that such service is itself the greatest reward, only available to those who have performed a vast amount of good deeds, sukriti. Yes, we can never do a favor for the Vaishnava. We're just fortunate to have any opportunity that they give us to serve them. One is upaya buddhi and the other is upaya buddhi. The idea of getting a reward or the idea of having a chance to serve. Okay. Do not become struck with amazement upon hearing kirtan and glorification of various demigods. On the other hand, it is offensive if the sight of devotee performing Nam Sankirtan of Vishnu and the Vaishnavas does not bring you any joy. If a Vaishnava first offers obeisances to you and states, "I am your servant," then it constitutes severe aparad if you do not honor him in return. We must be very discreet regarding a Vaishnava's natal background or conditions that may arise in him, such as sleepiness or fatigue. Indeed, if we perceive any apparent insufficiency in a Vaishnava, we must never reveal it or speak about it to anyone. One must not consider oneself to be equal to Vaishnavas. If out of carelessness one touches the body of a gross materialist, then after bathing with all one's clothes on, one must at once drink the water that has bathed the lotus feet, the charnamrita of a Vaishnava. Bhagavan Sri Hari's pure prasad, which takes away all sins, must never be considered contaminated. One must not associate with those who consider their body to be their self. Even if they don all the outward signs of a Vaishnava, one must never associate with such cheaters, for without doubt they are attached to the objects of sense pleasure. If one is chastised by the Vaishnavas, one must remain silent and never contemplate causing them any harm. The worship of the Vaishnavas is truly the highest form of service to Bhagavan. Disrespecting the Vaishnavas is a more severe offense than disrespecting Vishnu himself. And the Charnamrita of Vaishnavas is even greater than the Charnamrita of Sri Vishnu. Know all of this to be true and free from lethargy. Worship the Vaishnavas with full dedication as you would worship Sri Vishnu. That is really awesome. Pretty much all those instructions were in relation to the Vaishnavas, wasn't it? And also, Prasad, 2 verses about Prasad. This is great. All right, so now we are going to read, this is a very long article, look how small this thing is. Anyhow, I'll just start. This is, so April 17th, 2021 is the appearance day of Śrīmad Bhakti Hṛdaya Gosvāmī Mahārāja in Vrindavan, India. Below is an excerpt of his glories from my beloved masters by Śrīla Bhakti Vijñāna Bhāratī Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Let me just check everything is okay. Looks like it. All right. Meeting the Gaudiya Math devotees. During his time in college, Śrīmad Bhakti Hṛdaya Gosvāmī Mahārāja, then Sri Narendra Bandyopadhyaya, was an exceptionally bright student, well liked by both teachers and other students. One second. He displayed a natural aptitude for drama and theater, and because he had studied in an English medium school, he was fluent in English. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to clear my throat in the mic. Sorry about that. Sri Narendra was his father's 10th and youngest son, and was also very dear to him. After he finished his collegiate studies, his father fell seriously ill, and due to this, some of the family moved from their village and rented an apartment in Gandhariya Pali, Dhaka, where his father had been admitted to the hospital and was undergoing treatment. Soon after their move, however, Sri Narendra became aloof from virtually all social activities. He suddenly found himself unconcerned for the affection of his family and friends. Instead, he nourished his increasingly growing compulsion to find a bona fide guru, perform Krishna bhajan, and thereby make his life worthwhile. Bhagavan makes all kinds of arrangements for those who sincerely seek after him. And so around this time, as a result of his powerful Bhakti-unmukhi Sukriti, that's results of pious activities that lead toward Bhakti, Sri Narendra somehow came in contact with the devotees of Sri Madhva Gaudiya Math in Dhaka. There, Sri Narendra heard about Srila Prabhupada's extraordinary glories, and before long, he decided to set out for Kolkata to have a glimpse of his holy feet on the pretext of picking up medicine for his father. At Sri Gaudiya Math, Kolkata, Sri Narendra Bandyopadhyaya attained the audience and inexhaustible affection of Srila Prabhupada, whose powerful Harikatha inspired him to begin a new life. He decided not to return to Dhaka at all, and instead arranged for someone to deliver his father's medicine while he remained at the Math in Kolkata. After further hearing Srila Prabhupada's Harikatha for some days, Sri Narendra Bandyopadhyaya requested Srila Prabhupada for Harinam and Mantra Diksha. According to the verdict of scriptures, both guru and disciple must examine one another before establishing a formal relationship based on initiation. Therefore, before giving his sanction, Srila Prabhupada examined Sri Narendra by asking him to compose an article in his own words, conveying some of what he had assimilated. Sri Narendra carefully wrote an essay titled Atmiya Ke, Who is One's Own? Although the word Atmiya is generally interpreted as relating to either the gross or subtle body, Sri Narendra explained it in relation to the soul, the Atma. That Sri Narendra Bandyopadhyaya deeply understood such grave subject matter in only a short time indicates he must have associated with sadhus either earlier in his current life or in previous lives, for it would have been otherwise impossible. Srila Prabhupada was so pleased by Sri Narendra Bandyopadhyaya's essay that that he had it published in his weekly Gaudiya magazine, Year 2, Issue 48, 26 July 1924. In this way, Sri Narendra Bandyopadhyay passed his test. Shortly after, he received Pancharatriki Diksha from Srila Prabhupada and became known as Sri Nandasunu Brahmachari. Once he received Diksha initiation from his Sri Guru Padma, Sri Nandasunu Brahmachari constantly strived at every moment to adhere to the concept of Vishrambena Guru Seva, performing intimate service to Sri Guru without hesitation or reservation. Sri Nandasunu Brahmachari was neither seen diverting his attention from his efforts to serve Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas to indulgence in sense gratification for even a second. Sorry, I said neither, didn't I? I meant to say never. He was never seen diverting his attention from his efforts to serve Sri Hari, Guru, and Vaishnavas for even a second. Preaching under Srila Prabhupada's guidance. On 29 January 1925, the day of Sri Vishnupriya Devi's appearance, a pilgrimage tour of Sri Gauramandal commenced under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada. During the expedition, Shripad Nandasunu Brahmachari spoke in many places as ordered by Srila Prabhupada and executed countless other services for Sri Guru and Vaishnavas, thereby becoming the recipient of his Sri Guru Padma's profuse love and affection. That year, on 4th December 1925, he accepted Tridanda Sannyas at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and became known as Tridandi Swami Śrīmad Bhakti Hṛdaya Ban Gosai Mahārāja. Whoa, so 1925, and he got Diksha in 1924. So in less than a year, it was July 1924, and sannyas was 4th September 1925. So yeah, just a little over a year later, he got sannyas. One of Srila Prabhupada's cherished pursuits was to impart the message of pure devotion through the medium of his spiritual Sat Shiksha Pradarshini exhibitions. Srila Ban Goswami Maharaj was significantly involved in designing and decorating the exhibits in Sri Dham Mayapur, Kolkata, Dhaka, Patna, Kashi, Prayag, and Kurukshetra. He was particularly involved in designing the dioramas of Sri Govardhan and the Sakis groves at Sri Radhakund for an exhibition in Sri Dham Mayapur, revealing the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami after the indication from Sri Guru. Every solar eclipse, hundreds of thousands of people journey to Kurukshetra to ritualistically take bath in Brahma Sarovar. But the deep import of this ritual remains unknown to the vast majority of these pilgrims. Once, some time before such a solar eclipse, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter to Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj in which he mentioned, Srimati Radhika will soon go to meet with Krishna in Kurukshetra, and so we have some service to perform there as well. Although the message was short and cryptic, Srila Mahārāja understood that his Sri Guru Padma wanted him to manifest to the whole world a confidential pastime, which previously appeared in the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami by the divine mercy of Sriman Mahaprabhu. To this end, during a month-long local fair in Kurukshetra, Srila Ban Goswami Maharaj expertly created an exhibition with dioramas that beautifully depicted the following. Nanda Baba meeting with all the senior Vrajvasis before a solar eclipse. The Vrajvasis preparing to depart for Kurukshetra. The deep, dark forest they encountered on their journey, being illuminated by the natural radiance of Sri Radha's body, which protected them against the attacks of wild animals. Wow, that is super awesome. The Vrajvasis meeting with the Dwarkavasis. Nanda Baba and Mother Yashoda's tearful reunion with Sri Krishna, who burrowed himself deeply in Yashoda's lap. who burrowed himself so deeply in Sri Yashoda's lap that it appeared as if he were trying to merge into her. Everyone's bathing in Brahma Sarovar on the day of the solar eclipse. The Queens of Dwarka's proposal to donate to Narad Muni Krishna's weight in a precious substance during the solar eclipse, and Narad Muni's condition that he will take Krishna away with him should they be unable to match Krishna's weight. The Queens of Dwarka's prideful acceptance of Narad Muni's proposal, followed by their inability to give him a sufficient amount of gold. Their weeping at the thought of Narad taking Krishna away. The advice of Mother Rohini to bring all the gopis headed by Sri Radha. Sri Radha placing all the queen's gold with a single tulsi leaf on which she had written the name Krishna. That tulsi leaf outweighing Sri Krishna, thus establishing that Krishna Nam and Sri Krishna himself are non-different. It was the weight of the tulsi leaf that tipped the scale. Sri Krishna meeting with the gopis in a secluded place on the pretext of falling ill, and their subsequent conversation. Sri Radha complaining to Krishna and his attempt to pacify her. The gopis demonstrating the insignificance of opulence, Aishwarya, in the face of sweetness. The weeping of Sri Radha and Sri Krishna. The gopis pulling Krishna in his chariot back to Vrindavan. Sriman Mahaprabhu manifesting the mood of Sri Radha while dancing in front of Jagannath's chariot and ecstatically reciting a verse from a seemingly mundane poem. This poem. What's the meter for this? Ya Kumara Harasa eva hivaras ta eva chaitrakshapas te chonmilita malati surabhaya proda kadamba nila sachaivasmi tathapi tatra surata vyapara lila vido. The last line isn't there. Anyhow. He who has stolen away my youth is now my husband. These are the same moonlit nights in the month of Chaitra when we first met in our youth. The same breezes from the Kadamba forest are blowing the same light, sweet fragrance from the blossoming malati flowers. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover. Nonetheless, my heart is longing for the amorous, love-laden play of our first meeting at the foot of the Vetasi tree on the bank of the river Reva. And then a diorama of Srila Rupa Gosvāmī mentally composing a parallel verse that revealed the mood and intended meaning of Sriman Mahaprabhu's poetic recitation. Priya soyam Krishna sahachari kurukshetra militas tataham sarada tadidam ubhaya sangama sukam tatapyanta khelan madhura murali panchamajushe manome kalindi pulina vipinaya sprihayati. I'm not so good at doing that meter. Anyhow, that's from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 176. My dear friend, in this Kurukshetra is that very same Sri Krishna who had secretly engaged in amorous pastimes with me in Vrindavan. I am also that same Radha, and the happiness of our meeting is still the same. But nonetheless, my heart is yearning for that very forest of Vrindavan, situated on the banks of the Yamuna, where Sri Krishna used to continuously engage in pastimes and play the fifth note of his charming Murali flute. Oh, that's weird. The fourth line of this verse somehow made it all the way down here. Revaro dasiveta sitarutale cheta samutkantate. Anyhow. This is a lot of many dioramas. Okay, and then a diorama of Srila Rupa Gosvāmī later writing this verse on a palm leaf and keeping it in the thatched roof of his bhajan kutir. Then Srimad Mahaprabhu's ecstasy upon finding and reading that verse, and his admittance that Rupa Goswāmī was able to understand his heart because he had previously blessed him in Prayag. Next to each diorama, Srila Bhāna Goswāmī Mahārāja placed a brief description and also posted a devotee to further explain its depicted pastime. Srila Prabhupada was highly pleased by this arrangement. All those who attended the exhibition were endlessly grateful to have learned the real purpose of visiting Kurukshetra during a solar eclipse. It is exceedingly difficult for a disciple to understand the intentions of Sri Guru, who, being a sincere follower of Shrotavani, the teachings of the Vedas, which are often conveyed indirectly, relishes Parokshavad, or indirect speech. Only his antaranga disciples, only his intimate, internal disciples, are capable of understanding the true intended meanings of his words. The term antaranga, or internal, refers to one who has proven himself to possess such firm faith that Sri Gurudev relies on him completely, and without hesitation allows him to enter into the innermost chamber of his heart. Because Srila Bhāna Goswāmī Mahārāja was an intimate antaranga associate of Srila Prabhupada, he understood the true meaning of his Gurudev's mysterious instruction, and was thus able to serve him in a way that fulfilled his heart's desire. His natural talent. Srila Bhāna Goswāmī Mahārāja had a natural God-gifted talent for public speaking, which flourished even more by the mercy of the Venerable Srila Prabhupada. He could speak without pause for hours on end in Bengali, Hindi, and English. Srila Prabhupada awarded him with the title Vāgami Pravar, which means the greatest of orators. Through his mastery of language and his deeply devotional lectures, he connected many people with Srila Prabhupada. While delivering Harikatha, his eyes would move continuously like a gramophone. What is a gramophone? It's an old-fashioned term for record player. Okay. He often spoke for hours on end, yet never suffered from issues with his throat, medical or otherwise, up to the very end of his life. Carrying on his head the gracious blessings and orders of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhāna Goswāmī Mahārāja constantly preached Shri Guru Gauranga's divine message of pure devotion across India, from the Bay of Bengal to the Indian Ocean to the Himalayas, with dauntless enthusiasm and total fearlessness. By Srila Prabhupada's boundless mercy, Srila Mahārāja assisted in establishing Gaudiya Math branches in various places in India, including Madras, Kabura, where Srimad Mahaprabhu met Sri Raya Ramananda, Kashi, Naimisharanya, and Kurukshetra, thereby rendering an invaluable service in propagating the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Dev. Sending a worthy preacher. The message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu concerns Jaiva Dharma, the innate propensity of all living entities, regardless of the country in which they happen to reside. Following the desire of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada did not want the preaching of this message to be limited to India alone. Thus he met with Sri Rabindranath Tagore, who had recently returned to India after receiving a Nobel Prize in the West, and asked him, "In your opinion, to which Western country should we first send preachers to spread the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?" "None," the poet replied. "Many unscrupulous persons who early visited these places to preach Vedic Dharma have tarnished the image of sadhus. As a result, Westerners have lost faith in Indian saints." Is this background noise too loud? Let me make sure the noise suppression is there. Okay. Srila Prabhupada then explained to him Srimad Mahaprabhu's message, and in particular, made cutting remarks regarding the popular sects of the Prakrita Sahajyas, a mundane sentimentalists who believe Sri Bhagavan is attainable through material means. After attentively hearing everything, Sri Rabindranath Tagore asked, What exactly does the term prakrita sahaja mean? I have never heard it, nor have I seen it in any dictionary. Srila Prabhupada explains, the word sahaja is a highly sacred term. It refers to those truly pure devotees of Sri Krishna whose hearts are filled with a spontaneous, unconditional love and affection for him that does not depend on the statements of scriptures that glorify him as Bhagavan. The eternally perfect residents of Braj, like Sri Nanda, Sri Yashoda, Srimati Radharani, and others, are shining examples of such sahaja devotees. Nowadays, many unqualified conditioned souls try to imitate the moods of these transcendental personalities by deceitfully imposing such moods on their own character. Therefore, we use this word prakrita sahaja to refer to such persons because the prostitution of words, that is, grossly misinterpreting the true meaning of words in order to support one's vested interests, has now become common practice. These days, the vast majority of people are incapable of understanding the actual imports of words, and so perversions of terminology often remain unchecked. Sri Rabindranath Tagore, being captivated and moved by Srila Prabhupada's presentation of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, said, "It is only if you yourself visit the Western countries that great success in preaching will be assured. Everyone will surely greet you with honor." Srila Prabhupada replied, if I choose to send someone, it will be someone equally as qualified as myself. Srila Prabhupada was so proud of his worthy disciples' accomplishments that he resolved to send them across the oceans to the west. Thus he determined to send Srila Vana Mahārāja and my Guru Mahārāja, then Sri Hayagriva Brahmachari, for in his opinion, their personal conduct and ability to deliver the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as presented by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mirrored that of his own. However, Guru Mahārāja was prevented from going to the west, not only because he was needed in India for his expertise in preaching and his ability to maintain Srila Prabhupada's mats through collecting sizable donations, but also because of some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples felt his effulgent, youthful beauty made him a target for the affection of Western women, who had no understanding or appreciation of the celibacy of Indian sadhus. Thus, Śrīmad Bhakti Pradeep Tirtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja was sent in his stead. Renouncing even renunciation for the service of Śrīman Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada once asked Sri Kunja Bihari Vidyabhushan Prabhu to buy an expensive pair of shoes for Srila Ban Goswami Maharaj, who out of his natural renunciation never wore footwear during his stay in the Math. Sri Kunja Bihari Prabhu then brought those shoes, which cost 32 rupees, a considerable expense at that time, to Srila Ban Goswami Maharaj, with an instruction from Srila Prabhupada to appear before him wearing those shoes. When Srila Ban Goswami Maharaj abided by this instruction and came before him wearing the shoes, Srila Prabhupada declared, "Today your renunciation has achieved perfection, because you have renounced even your renunciation for the service of Śrīman Mahaprabhu." Preaching in England and Germany. During Srila Prabhupada's previously mentioned conversation with Sri Rabindranath Tagore, Sri Rabindranath Tagore suggested, if you are going to send your preachers to foreign countries, it would be best for them to first go to Germany, not England. This is because the German people are interested in our Vedic Indian philosophy, whereas the English have a superiority complex towards us. They consider us their subjects and feel we are inferior to them in every respect. They will not listen to your preachers, nor will they appreciate their message. When Srila Prabhupada mentioned this to Srila Van Goswami Maharaj, Srila Maharaj told him, "We must first preach where there is more difficulty. It is only when we are successful there that we will move on to places where success is inevitable. I do not wish to waste the wealth of Śrīman Mahaprabhu's service on mere sightseeing." Appreciating his view, Srila Prabhupada first sent him to England, and later to Germany. In England, Srila Van Goswami Maharaj preached the message of Śrīman Mahaprabhu at the universities of Oxford, Cambridge, and Exeter. as well as at various establishments in London. At Oxford, he was invited to speak for just 15 minutes, but in that brief period, he so impressed his audience that he was invited to Buckingham Palace, to address the royal assembly there. With the grace and permission of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj established the London Gaudiya Mission, the London Gaudiya Mission Society, and the Secretary of State for India, Lord Zetland, attended the inaugural ceremony as chairman. A number of affluent members of London high society, being deeply interested in the notion of a true religion, initiated correspondence with Srila Prabhupada and posed various questions to him. The London Gaudiya Mission Society's main topics of discussion were Srila Prabhupada's answers, which arrived weekly in London by airmail. When Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj wanted to preach in Germany, he was advised against speaking in English due to political tensions. He was given the option to speak either in his native language through a German translator or directly in German. Thus, Srila Mahārāja opted to learn German, which he accomplished in only 6 months, after which he composed 2 books. After which he composed 2 books in German. Whoa! As in London, his preaching in Germany met with great success. He delivered addresses at universities in Königsberg, Leipzig, Dresden, Berlin, and Munich. I don't even know how to say all these words. Munich, or is it Munich? And was even invited to speak in cities in other countries, including Prague, Vienna, and Paris, where he was given special regard by His Majesty, the former Kaiser of Germany. Kaiser. Upon Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj's return to India in December of 1936, he was honored and celebrated by many distinguished Indian intellectuals of the time. He brought with him 2 German devotees who were eager to take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. One of these individuals later became known as Shripad Sadananda Swami. Thus, it was due to Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj's preaching efforts that Srila Prabhupada commenced the initiation of Westerners into the Gaudiya Vaishnava Dharma. Just checking everything is okay. Looks like it. Yes, okay. Preaching in universities and colleges. Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj was the first of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, and possibly the first person in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach in universities and colleges. He considered that if young people were to accept the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then others would automatically accept it. This technique was later adopted by many Vaishnavacharyas. He was invited several times by various universities in the West to expound the speciality of Sri Bhagavat Dharma, the religion of worshipping the Supreme Lord, as described in the Vedic canon. The prominent feature of his preaching was that he established the unparalleled speciality of India's Vedic philosophy, specifically what was preached and practiced by Śrīmad Mahaprabhu. Oh, and there is Sarananda, and that's Sarananda, and I don't know, there's Bhakti Hṛdaya Goswami Maharaj. I don't know what this, I forgot what this guy's name was. Srila Vana Goswami Maharaj traveled to America twice. First, I didn't know that he went to America. First in 1939, where he preached extensively across the East Coast, delivering lectures on Sri Gaura's message in the cities of New York, Boston, Stockbridge, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia, and eventually made his way to Chicago in the Midwest. After this, he went to Japan and returned to India via Hong Kong. In 1960, he went to West Germany, Austria, Belgium, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, and various other places. Later, between 1974 and 1975, he again visited America to propound the glories of Śrīmad Mahaprabhu's philosophy. Whoa, I had no idea about this. His translation of Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was accepted as a thesis by universities in America and Sweden, where he was awarded honorary doctorates in literature and divinity, respectively. To train the youth of Vraj about Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, specifically Sri Chaitanya Dev's Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, the inconceivable principle of simultaneously oneness and difference between the Supreme Lord and all that exists, he went to great lengths to establish the Institute of Oriental Philosophy in Sri Dham Vrindavan, as well as a primary school on the banks of Sri Pavan Sarovar and Sri Nandagram. Originally, he gave the Institute of Oriental Philosophy the name Vaishnav Theological University, but for various reasons he was compelled to change it. His prolific literary contribution. After Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, Srila Vana Gosvāmī Mahārāja lived somewhat independently and focused on writing several books in English, Bengali, and Hindi, which included Vaikuntha Pate, On the Path to the Spiritual Realm, My First Year in England, Viraha Vedana, The Pain of Separation, Gita as a Chaitanyite reads it, Sri Chaitanya, The Search, My Lectures in England, and his translation of Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He also published the quarterly English magazine, India Philosophy and Culture. During most of 1938, he lived in Ayodhya, studying the Vedas under the guidance of a scholar of the Yajur Veda. There he wrote a book in Bengali called Veder Parichai, an introduction to the Vedas. The Sons of Saraswati. Once I went with a group of devotees to Srila Vana Gosvāmī Mahārāja's mat in Vrindavan to have his darshan, but upon our arrival, we learned he was unwell. Just as I was about to depart after paying my respects outside his door, Srila Mahārāja called me inside. He was a bit displeased that I was ready to leave without first seeing him. I explained, I did not want to bother you since you are feeling unwell. I heard that your doctor has advised you to speak as little as possible. Srila Mahārāja replied, Must I simply lay in bed and count the beams on the ceiling? Am I not to speak with the Vaishnavas? We are Saraswati Putra, the sons of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. As long as we are speaking Harikatha, we feel very healthy. We feel healthy. It is when we are cheated of that opportunity that we truly feel ill. So do you want me to be healthy or sick? Furthermore, the doctors of this world may prescribe us many instructions for our physical well-being, but we wish to follow the instructions of Sri Guru, the doctor concerned for our spiritual well-being, who mentioned, no harm can come to one who properly takes the type of food that nourishes the soul. But one who avoids or takes an inadequate amount of such food and instead concerns himself with nourishing only the gross and subtle bodies invites sickness in the truest sense. Unfortunate is the day we do not receive the chance to hear or speak Harikatha, which is the soul's sustenance. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. The daily service of Śrīmad Bhagavatam is one of the primary limbs of Bhakti. His love and respect for Guru Maharaj. Srila Vana Gosvāmī Mahārāja was the chairman of the memorial assembly held after Guru Maharaj's disappearance. He wept the entire time he spoke, so much so that his speech was virtually incomprehensible. However, through the tears, he managed to say, although Sripad Madhav Maharaj was junior to so many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, it was he who followed Srila Prabhupada's example fully in both his preaching and conduct. The rest of us have made small adjustments and changes along the way, but Sripad Madhav Maharaj never displayed such a tendency for change for even a single moment, neither in his personal conduct nor his preaching. When Guru Maharaj disappeared from the world, Srila Vana Gosvāmī Mahārāja gave me many instructions on how to perform the Samadhi ceremony. He told me that the size of the Samadhi should be 1.5 quarter the size of the body of the recipient of the Samadhi. Interesting. The size of the Samadhi should be 1.5 quarter the size of the body of the recipient of the Samadhi. That prior to covering the body with earth and salt, one must cover the body, including the head and face, with a new saffron-colored cloth, so that the earth does not directly touch the body. And that the location of the Samadhi should be an adequate distance from the road, so that it need not be moved if by chance so that it need not be moved if by chance the municipality tries to acquire part of the matt's property in order to widen the road. Huh, that's some great foresight. Because that problem happened with Śrīla Govinda Goswami Maharaj, right? They wanted to widen the road, and they were going to build the road over his samadhi. And so they had to destroy the samadhi and his bhajan kutir and then move the samadhi in a very short amount of time. Firm faith in Śrīla Prabhupada's guidance amid discomfort. In 1978, on the occasion of the first Vyas Puja of Śrīla Prabhupada, on the occasion of the first Vyas Puja of Śrīla Prabhupada to be celebrated at his appearance place in Puri, I was given the responsibility of arranging accommodations for all the invited devotees. Okay, so this is the first appearance ceremony that they celebrated at Sri Chaitanya Mat, his appearance place, right next to Sri Jagannath Mandir. I arranged 2 places for Śrīla Bhāna Goswami Maharaj, so as to provide him with an alternative option. One was a rather poor room in our Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Mat, which at the time consisted of an old building that had been acquired with the purchase of the land. And the other was a decent room with suitable amenities in Śrīmad Bhakti Kumud Shanta Goswami Maharaj's Mat. Naturally, disregarding any consideration of material comfort, Śrīla Bhāna Goswami Maharaj preferred to stay at Śrīla Prabhupada's birthplace. Who knows how long I will stay in this material world, he told me. I may never again receive the opportunity to return to this place. It is better to stay where my spiritual master appeared and performed his childhood pastimes. I shall stay here, the place Śrīla Prabhupada decorated with his lotus feet. Hearing his decision to stay in our mat, I quickly constructed a private latrine for him in only one night, using coconut leaves and a heavy rainproof cloth for the roof. Although the facilities in our mat were quite meager, Śrīla Mahārāja happily tolerated everything, thus demonstrating the depth of his Guru Nishta. It was Śrīla Bhāna Goswami Maharaj who performed the Bhāratī and other aspects of the Vyas Puja celebrations. During Harikatha that evening, he said, "It will be a matter of great delight if, from now onward, the followers of Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada continue to gather and celebrate his Vyas Puja here and his Tirobhav Mahotsav at this Samadhi Mandir in Mayapur." Śrīla Mahārāja's desire is now being fulfilled. Annual festivals celebrating Śrīla Prabhupada's appearance and disappearance days are held at these locations in Sri Puri Dham and Sri Dham Mayapur respectively. Sorry, I have to remember not to clear my throat on the mic. Keep on forgetting. Love and dedication for his deities. Before leaving this world, Śrīla Bhāna Goswami Maharaj constructed his own samadhi so as not to trouble anyone or elicit any sort of service from his god brothers or disciples. Additionally, he had a strong desire to remain close to the deities he established. He therefore feared that his disciples or god brothers may choose to place him in some other location. For this reason, he arranged everything himself, thus exhibiting the extent of his dedication to and love for his deities. All right, so that is the end of the article. They already started serving prasad, so I'm going to end very quickly. But just see Anjali's comment here. Thanks, Madhu. This is one of my favorite books. I believe Shripad Siddhanti Maharaj has recorded it and volcanic energy. I never know when you're reading. Okay. Every day I'm singing Vṛndā-devyāṣṭakam and Keśavāṣṭakam at 8 p.m. So from 8 to 9 p.m. every day, I'm reading a new article every day from Rays of the Harmonist. And in the morning time from 7 to 8, I read from Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Vāmana Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Swāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keśavāṣṭakam Mahārāja ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Vishnupāda Ashtatara Shatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gokṣaras Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vṛndā ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vṛndā ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radhakund Shamakund ki jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vṛndā-devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vṛnda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vṛnda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Oh, I almost forgot. Srila Rāmānujācārya ki jai. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai. Srila Bhakti Hṛdaya Van Goswami Mahārāja ki jai. This will answer Anjali's question. Tadiya Shubha Avirbhav Titi ki jai. Shri Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vṛndāya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keśavāṣṭakam Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha. Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. Thank you for joining me. And tomorrow we will read an article by, I don't know, maybe by Śrīla Bhakti Rakshakshita Goswami Maharaj, or by Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, or by Bhakti Hṛdaya Van Goswami Maharaj. We're going to go for a few days reading articles, and also by Śrīla Prabhupada. We're going to read articles by different disciples of Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. Alright, Jai Shri Radhe, Hari Bol.